VGI presents a Super Mario 64 intro deep dive. Nothing's had quite the impact this game's had on me over the years. I can still remember the first time I finally got my hands on this game after months of excitement, reading up on everything I could find on Nintendo Power. The move to 3D was quite something back then as well, and PC gaming not being as big as console gaming was, a lot of people's first experience with 3D graphics was PS1 and Sega Saturn, but Nintendo really brought it into the mainstream, in my opinion, with Super Mario 64. I still vividly remember renting the console for the whole weekend, waiting for my parents to go to sleep and then staying awake all night playing this game with my brother. Even to this day, I'll still find myself starting it all over again once in a while, as it's one of those experiences that stays fresh to me for some reason, playthrough after playthrough. Welcome to the Super Mario 64 deep dive by video game intros and title screens. This game does have a very simple and quick introduction, so there unfortunately isn't much to analyze. But what's there does have some meaning and is well thought out, as is every Shigeru Miyamoto game, obviously. First off, we start with the now famous "It's-a me, Mario," voiced by Charles Martinet.
It's me, Mario!
First off, it's a sentence that still resounds with people to this day and is an expression that is used even in the latest Mario movie, and something people associated quite heavily with Mario. Not only that, but this is very much the first time Charles Martinet had been used to voice Mario in a game on a Nintendo system. He had been initially hired by Nintendo a few years prior to Super Mario 64 to voice Mario at a trade show on the Mario in Real Time, or MERT for short.
Dance for you? Hobby number 88. Hello. That's my name. You can call me 8.
Martinez's first video game appearance as Mario was in the 1994 CD version of the game Mario Teaches Typing, and then in the 1995 release of Mario's Game Gallery, where he spoke full dialogue as Mario for extended periods of time to the player. Those games, however, didn't really have any mass appeal, so Super Mario 64 is pretty much the first time most players were exposed to Martinez's voicing of Mario, and I think that debuting the game's boot-up sequence directly with Charles Martinez's voice, saying the now iconic line, was used explicitly to make sure people would associate his voice with the character, as it's something that has had an impact on pretty much everyone who has played this game, directly carving this memory in people's minds, something most gamers will never forget. Right after, we are then immediately given control of a floating hand where you can pinch various parts of Mario's face. Two stars appear, a white one and a red one, showcasing the N64's advanced lighting. If we give it some time, Mario falls asleep, and then, as he's sleeping, the screen turns to white as if he was having a dream, which brings us to the 8-track mode. You can now use the controller to play around with Mario's face. Move the cap, the ears, the cheeks, the nose, and the mouth. You can press the B button to adjust how far his face is, and the C buttons to turn the face around. Holding the R button will make the parts you moved around stay in place, and as you stretch and release the parts, get back into place, just like an elastic. The way you move the cursor around with the joystick was something new back then, and the N64 controller was the first one to come out of the box with a joystick by default, unlike the Saturn and PS1 consoles. And I think having the interactive Mario face was also a way to get people accustomed to the new controller. From a 1996 interview, we learned that the floating head idea actually came from a prototype for Mario Paint 3D. Skin animation, as it's called, was a fairly standard thing in the world of animation, but Shigeru Miyamoto thought it was the first time it had actually been included into a game. What's interesting here is the fact that Mr. Miyamoto wanted you to have an interactive element right away, even before you start the actual game. Back then, Miyamoto expressed his concerns in an interview where he said that he felt that game designers felt like lesser movie directors, and I believe having the interactive head in game right at the start was a way for him to defy the current trends of the time and really push forward the gaming and gameplay aspects of his games. To quote him, game developers are starting to have a lot of pretensions with 3D. It used to be, in the past, people would ask me, making games is a lot like making movies, isn't it? And I'd always respond, yeah, it kind of is. It's a similar process. Then they'd ask, so do you want to make movies then? And I'd always reply in the negative, that no, we don't want to make movies because we're making games. But lately, everyone making games seems to aspire to be some kind of movie director. Part of me is like, what the hell? Do you all have some inferiority complex with movies? At the same time, when we were making the opening titles for Mario 64, we realized this was starting to feel a lot like making a movie. We decided to try and make it interactive, something you could play with as and the rest of the game. As a title screen, if people feel it's a little empty or lacking something, all I can say is sorry. In hindsight, considering how much it has been talked about, I think his little experiment here was successful. A few interesting tidbits here before we move on are that as Mario appeared on screen, he says hello,
Hello!
which is something that only happens in the US version of the game, as it hadn't been implemented at the Japanese release of the title. As we press the start button, we enter the save file selection menu. And here, unfortunately, our intro and title screen deep dive finally comes to an end.
I baked a cake for you. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool. Peach.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little insight into the introduction to the premier launch title of the Nintendo 64 and the second episode of my series of analysis on video game intros and title screens. Do not hesitate to go back and watch episode 1 on Donkey Kong Country, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more in the future. Thank you for watching.